I still don't know how to attach photographs to tweets. Maybe Anthony Weiner can teach me that next time he's on the show. The Rachel Maddow Show is up next. Good evening, Rachel.
Now I want to teach you how to attach photographs to tweets. I will do that for a very reasonable price, Lawrence.
Okay, next week.
All right, deal. Excellent. Thank you, Lawrence. And thanks to you at home for staying with us for the next hour. Okay, you have to go back in time, right? Because the date is sometime in the spring of 2007. The setting is backstage at a Republican presidential primary debate. Okay, spring of 2007. Ready? The candidates lined up at the urinals. Giuliani next to McCain, next to Huckabee, the rest all in a row. The debate was soon to start, so they were taking care of business and laughing merrily at the one guy who wasn't there, poking fun at him, mocking him, agreeing about how much they disliked him. Then Willard Mitt Romney walked into the bathroom and overheard them, bringing on a crashing silence. Romney was the guy on whom much of the smart Beltway money had been betting from the start. Again, this is not this time around. This was last time around. Romney was the guy on whom much of the smart Beltway money had been betting from the start. But the combination of the vitriol of his attacks and his apparent corelessness explained the antipathy of the other candidates. Explains the antipathy the other candidates had toward him. For this next sentence, did we prepare a visual here? I'm going to need a visual. John McCain routinely called Romney a bleep hole and a bleeping phony. Giuliani opined, that guy will say anything. Huckabee complained, I don't think Romney has a soul. Romney's own team's view was more generous, but no less damning. His advisors found Mr. Romney to be indecisive, an incorrigible vacillator. The internal debates over his message and even his slogan went on for months without end or resolution. By the summer, Romney was stuck in single digits almost everywhere. That, according to Game Change, is what happened the last time Mitt Romney ran for president as the frontrunner. And the stuff at the end there, the incorrigible vacillator stuff, that was from the people who were working for him. It was almost as bad as the stuff coming from the other Republican candidates. And you might say, okay, the other Republican candidates didn't like him because they were his rivals for the nomination. But the point of the reporting at the urinals there is that all of those other candidates could easily, collectively, get over all of their other differences and unite around their collective dislike for Mitt Romney. And yes, they were rivals of his, and yes, he was sort of the front runner, but this is the primary process, just the primary process. All of those other candidates and all of their staff, everybody involved in Republican presidential politics is all supposed to unite around the eventual nominee. Had the nominee been Mitt Romney, imagine Mike Huckabee stepping up to man the barricades for what did he call him? The man with no soul? Imagine John McCain giving impassioned speeches in favor of his good friend, the bleeping phony. This is a strange problem for a front-running Republican presidential candidate to have. But this may be the determinative thing about Mitt Romney this election cycle. If he does not get the nomination, it may very well be because he does not seem to have a friend in the Republican Party, at least not one that anybody knows of. Case in point. Mr. Romney has been telegraphing frankly, for years now that he's going to be running for president. And 7 days ago, he announced that he would be making his announcement today in New Hampshire. It has been on our little futures calendar in our show's morning news note every day since that date was set. It's a public thing. Everybody knew today was the day Mitt Romney was going to announce in New Hampshire. And with all of that advance notice, somehow, accidentally, two other nationally known Republican potential candidates made sure they were in New Hampshire today holding their own political events to step all over Mitt Romney's big announcement. Rudy Giuliani may not even be running for president. Rudy Giuliani has barely been mentioned as a potential candidate this time around since he tanked so badly last time. And the Republican Party is so radically and obsessively anti-abortion right now, you really think they'd nominate a pro-choice guy? Rudy Giuliani, I'm sure, would like to keep his speaking fees as high as possible, so he has an interest in stoking the speculation. But in terms of actually pretending to run, he's not trying very hard. He's made only a couple of appearances in New Hampshire since his failed run 4 years ago. But today he made sure to be there. There was Rudy Giuliani today in New Hampshire, the day that everybody knew Mitt Romney was going to be announcing his candidacy there. Also, Sarah Palin. She's on this strange photo op bus tour thing right now, right? Part of the conceit of this stunt from her is that it is supposed to be spontaneous. There's no set schedule. Her bus just randomly goes patriotic places, wherever is nearby, wherever is convenient. Yesterday, Sarah Palin's day started in New York City. Statue of Liberty, Ellis Island, right? And then even though this is supposedly just some vacation, a laid-back bus tour, we just pull over whenever we're tired of driving, she seems to have been quite determined to make it to New Hampshire today in time to step on Mitt Romney's announcement. Sarah Palin left New York City yesterday and quite literally drove through the tornado zone in Massachusetts just to keep on schedule. TV producers who I know, who were trailing the Palin motorcade yesterday, were forced to shelter in the basement of a church in central Massachusetts because they drove right into the tornado warning zone. And then when the storms had passed, back on the bus, people, we have to get to New Hampshire. And sure enough, even if she had to drive through tornadoes to do it, there was Sarah Palin in New Hampshire today, stepping all over Mitt Romney's big presidential announcement. Sarah Palin rolled up for a clam bake in New Hampshire today. Look at where those two places are marked on the map. 5 minutes from where Mitt Romney was holding his big announcement event that had been planned for a week. Look at that. Today, Democrats gleefully noted the effectiveness of Palin's sideswipe, pointing out the top billing that Ms. Palin got in the New Hampshire press over Mitt Romney, even though she was just stopping by spontaneously, and he was announcing he's running for president, and he is the frontrunner. Mitt Romney may very well end up being the Republican nominee, but it is not going to be with any help from any other Republicans you have ever heard of. In the days leading up to Mr. Romney's big announcement, the right-wing Tea Party organization FreedomWorks was busy announcing that they're going to do everything they can to stop Mitt Romney from getting the Republican nomination. One FreedomWorks official telling the Huffington Post, quote, "I don't think I've met any groups or any local activists that like him or want him to be president. Most people are definitely trying to stop Mitt Romney." FreedomWorks says they are planning to concentrate on nudging the grassroots toward coalescing behind whoever ends up being the most electable alternative to Mitt Romney. Then there's the conservative Western Representation PAC. They have been a rising player in conservative politics recently, running anti-union ads like this one in Wisconsin this year, raising money for Tea Party candidates like Sharon Engel and Joe Miller last year. Today, Western Representation PAC officially announced a Stop Romney campaign, declaring, quote, "We will never get behind Mitt Romney." Even relatively mainstream conservative outlets like the National Review have been noting recently that the prospect of Mitt Romney as the Republican nominee, quote, produces a range of emotions running from disappointment to panic. Imagine a year from now. Can you imagine conservative America united in rollicking, enthusiastic support for Mitt Romney as their candidate? Can you imagine it? I cannot imagine it. Mitt Romney's bad reputation within the Republican Party, his lack of a friend in the world in Republican politics, seems like one of the two most important things about his status as a frontrunner that's sort of yet to be incorporated into the common wisdom about him. That's one. Here's the second thing, and I am genuinely puzzled as to why this hasn't received more attention as a central issue in his campaign for the presidency. Mitt Romney is the only major contender for president on the Republican side who has not said if he wants to kill Medicare, who has not said what he would do if he were president and the Paul Ryan budget crossed his desk, who hasn't said whether he would have voted with other Republicans to kill Medicare, whether he would support the Paul Ryan plan. He just hasn't said. Nobody's made him say it. Tim Pawlenty tried for a long time to get away with not saying, but eventually Mr. Pawlenty conceded that he would sign a bill to kill Medicare. John Huntsman said he would do it too. Newt Gingrich first said he wouldn't. Then he was beaten to a metaphorical bloody pulp by his own side. And now he is trying to make us all believe that he was all for killing Medicare all along. But Mitt Romney has gotten away without saying. This is the central issue in national politics so far this year. Why isn't Mitt Romney getting asked every single time there is a camera near him whether he would sign or vote for the Paul Ryan Kill Medicare plan? Strategically, everybody agrees that the key to Mr. Romney winning the Republican nomination is that he must win New Hampshire, and he must win New Hampshire by a lot. Do you want to know what New Hampshire politics are about right now?
If I didn't have Medicare, doctor's bills could wipe me out and put a burden on my 5 kids. When Congressman Charlie Bass voted to end Medicare, that was an attack on New Hampshire families just like mine. My father worked with Charlie and respected him. I voted for him 5 times, but Charlie Bass has changed.
I voted for him 5 times. Charlie Bass, the Republican congressman against whom that ad is being run. New polling in his district, 2nd District in New Hampshire, says among his constituents, only 25% approve of his vote on the Paul Ryan thing. Only 25% approve of his vote to kill Medicare. He barely won his seat in 2010 against a strong Democratic challenger who was going up against him again. With this Medicare vote and the ads running against him already, highlighting the Medicare vote, featuring people who said they voted for him 5 times who would never do so again because of that vote, Mr. Bass, forgive the metaphor, has a hook in him right now, and he is being reeled into the boat. He appears to be DUN done. No matter how much every Republican you have ever heard of hates Mitt Romney and has developed a derisive, swearing nickname for him, nobody thinks of Mitt Romney as a dumb guy. He can see those numbers in New Hampshire. He can see what's about to befall Charlie Bass because of that vote. And all of them can see the numbers nationwide. A new poll out about the Paul Ryan kill Medicare thing shows that overall, only 35% of people in the country support it. And that is the best number it has going for it. 74% of seniors oppose it, as do the majorities in every single demographic group measured, including self-identified conservatives. More Republicans oppose the Paul Ryan plan than support it. With that looming as the biggest Democrat versus Republican issue in this whole election cycle, how is it that the Republican frontrunner for the presidential nomination is getting away with not saying what he thinks about it? Joining us now is the former Republican National Committee chairman and current MSNBC political analyst, Michael Steele. Mr. Steele, it is good to see you.
It's good to see you, Rachel. It's good to be back.
Thank you. What did you see of Republican elite opinions about Mitt Romney while you were RNC chairman? Is the way that Game Change spells it out sort of the way that you saw it too?
I think largely, yeah. I mean, he was, not very well liked, or there wasn't a warm fuzzy from a lot of people from the 08 campaign, and I think that's part of the, just the brutal nature of sort of elbowing your way through that process. And I think that, right now, going into New Hampshire and starting and kicking off this presidential cycle, there's a little fence mending going on. There's a little bridge building going on. There are a lot of little things that he and his team have had to do to bring down the temperature that was left from the last fight and to get ready for this one, because, by their calculations, he will likely walk out of there with the nomination. There is a lot of water that's going to go into that bridge, however, before that happens. And I think the reality for Mitt on this day, as you very well pointed out, was that he's got some actors out there who will bring the rain on this parade, and he's going to have to deal with that.
In terms of the Freedom Works move here, Freedom Works says they are actually going to finance efforts to make sure that Mitt Romney is not the candidate. They're going to promote his rivals. They're going to work against him getting the nomination. They're making noises that if he does get the nomination, they'll try to get people to support a third-party candidate rather than supporting him, which, of course, is suicide for any Republican nominee. Is that the sort of thing, for Freedom Works to be doing this, does that mean that that has to be happening with some sort of tacit Republican support? Are these Republican bigwigs, or are these actual outsiders, as they say?
Well, no, this is the establishment here that you're talking about largely that Mitt has had to deal with. If you recall, in the 08 cycle, they were very warm on Mitch. They liked him. You saw favorable editorials out of a lot of the conservative papers, the Wall Street Journal, and certainly the blogs. So there was much more of a warm fuzzy for him then than there is now. And you just saw recently the Wall Street Journal basically take the skewer and just apply it in an editorial about a month ago. So when you get to a Freedom Works organization, which is grassroots, their fight with him, if you will, is over the health care issue. The plan that was put in place in Massachusetts that has been aligned along with Obamacare has rankled a lot of people, and I think that a lot of that noise germinates from that. My caution for the rank and file is in this fight for the nomination. That's one tactic, that's one battle, but let's not take it so far that we leave behind bruised feelings and hurt hands that cannot lift the nominee if it is Romney to victory in 2012, because that is going to be the real battle. The real battle is not so much this primary, but getting ourselves positioned and warmed up for the fight against the Obama administration over the next year.
Yeah, and that's the whole reason that's why I think this nomination announcement, or this announcement today, is so interesting to see other people, particularly Sarah Palin, but to see other people so eager, even on day one, to make sure that essentially he never gets out of the starting gate when he is seen as having maybe the best general election chances against Obama, at least at this point. But let me ask you about what...
Well, I was going to say to that, Rachel, as they say, payback's a you-know-what,
yeah,
right?
That's right. Well, let me ask you about one... I have to be honest, I hated Game Change. I totally hated this book, but the stuff on Romney in particular seems so relevant to this launch, so I want to get your reaction to one other piece of reporting in here on him. In trying to explain his failure to catch on, Romney's advisors pointed to another issue, which they shorthanded as TMT, the Mormon thing. For the evangelical portion of the Republican base with its suspicions about Mormonism, Romney's religion was a significant roadblock. Friends of President Bush would call him from Texas and say of Romney's chances, "You've got to be kidding, he's in a cult." Nobody likes to admit that religious bias is going to affect their vote. But do you think there's evidence of it affecting Romney's support among Republicans?
No, not this cycle around. I think a lot of the newness and curiosity about the Mormon religion, and certainly Romney's role and relationship to his faith played a part in the 2008 cycle. I don't think that's a factor this time around. I think when you look at someone like a Governor Huntsman, who himself is Mormon, that's not an issue that comes leaping out when you raise his name or he's discussed. So I think a lot of people, as they focus on jobs, the economy, the possibility of being in a double dip recession kind of atmosphere, those things are much more weighty on the minds of the American people of all stripes, liberals to conservatives. And so I think that issue of faith and morals and his religion are not going to be a cornerstone issue. Now, it will probably be important to some people, but I don't think it's going to be a driver, and I don't think it's going to have the kind of impact on the nomination process that some out there may say.
Michael Steele, former RNC chair and MSNBC contributor. Actually, can we just put up that last photo that we just showed of Romney and Huntsman? I just think it's worth noting that we're talking about faith, and we put up this picture. This was not intentional, but doesn't John Huntsman kind of look like Satan in that picture?
Oh, please.
Like, I mean, look. No, I mean, he's not, obviously not, but like, we're talking about religion, and then we put up this picture. He's like this handsome, genial-looking guy. We found the one picture on Earth where he actually looks like a demon from hell. I want to rescind that photo. We'll hereby never show it again. I'm very sorry. Mr. Steele, I'm sorry.
No problem.
All right, thank you. Really, I didn't mean it. I'd never seen it before it was there. We will never show that photo again. John Huntsman is very handsome and not demonic at all. All right. Senator Sherrod Brown of Ohio is here in New York tonight. He will be with us in studio in just a moment. Also, did you hear who is guest hosting the Ed Schultz show tonight? Did you hear? It is amazing. I will tell you who that is in just a moment. And best new thing in the world today involves this.
We have had meetings about how to hold a mic so you don't make some noise, such as that, rubbing against my clothing here.
There's a reason for that. It is very funny. It is the best new thing in the world today, coming up right at the end of the show. That's all ahead. Republican legislators quitting their leadership jobs in their party, saying they can't stand the way their side is attacking union rights. Details ahead. The governor of Indiana, Mitch Daniels, is not running